Hello, Ravi here from LlamaIndex. So in this video, I'll give a quick walkthrough of how you can deploy a LlamaCloud pipeline with Google Drive as data source. So this basically involves two steps. You need to set up a LlamaCloud pipeline with Google Drive as data source, and then you need to query the created index. And then once you have these two things, you can deploy this using Llama Deploy, right? So let's start with it. You need to install these Python packages, LlamaIndex indices manage LlamaCloud, and then LlamaCloud to manage OS orchestration as well as manage the LlamaCloud indices. And then you need to set up the API keys, OpenAI API key and LlamaCloud API key. And you need a Google Drive service account key, JSON file. So how can you get them? So you can follow these instructions to set up to get the service account key JSON file, as well as you need to give access of this particular folder on which you want to create an index. So all these instructions are available here. You can go and check it out, and I'll link this in the description as well. And then once you have this set up already, you have two files basically. One is setting up pipeline or an index on LlamaCloud. So for which you need these details, data source name, you can give any name for the data source, and then folder ID of the Google Drive. So you have this folder ID here, so you need to give this folder ID, and then pipeline name, which is an index name, and service account key path, basically Google service account JSON key file, and then general RAG configuration, parameters, chunk size, and chunk overlap. So once you have all these things and run setup pipeline.py, you will create an index on LlamaCloud, right? And then once you have this index, you can query the index, right? So using workflow.py. We'll look into in details what these two files have. So once you have these two things set up, you need to deploy the workflow, right? So for that, you need to have a config.yaml file where you mention the index name, project name, and organization ID of your index that is created on LlamaCloud. So this is the usage. You first set up a pipeline.py file. So let's look into this file to get more details. So this is also a workflow. You have pipeline config, which has all these parameters that taken from the arguments, and then service account file, and you will create a data source from the Google Drive, which is data source create, give necessary details, folder ID, service account, and then that will create a data source. And then you set up the pipeline, which takes embedding config, transform config, basically uses the OpenAI embedding model, and then chunk size and chunk overlap. So once you have pipeline config, you create the index. That's it, right? So the pipeline is created accordingly. So to set up this pipeline, we have a workflow here. We have two events, create data source event, setup pipeline event. So setup pipeline, it initiates the LlamaCloud client, and then the next event is creates data source event, which creates the data source that we have seen from the folder ID of Google folder drive, and then it sets up the pipeline event, and basically it calls a pipeline setup pipeline event, and creates a pipeline. So this is how we have set up the whole workflow here to set up the pipeline on LlamaCloud. So this is how you can create a pipeline on LlamaCloud, and then once you have this, you will basically go to the workflow.py to where you can query the index. So you need basically some details, right? Index name, project name, and organization ID that you can get these from this config file, and then you can create the index and basically query the query engine, and then this returns a dictionary with query and the response. So this is the code for the same. So once you have all these things set up, you need to deploy, right? So for deploying, we have Llama Deploy, and then that uses deployment YAML file. So here we provide the necessary details of this YAML file for to see which workflow to run, and we give the details of control plane and then the services names. Basically, the LlamaCloud workflow is the workflow name that we have defined here, right? So this is the workflow name we have defined. So we'll mention the same name here, so that once you deploy, it looks for this LlamaCloud workflow and then run through it. And then what is the folder name where it is available, and what is the path of it. So once you have this YAML file, you basically deploy it, right? So we create a Llama Deploy API server first in an another shell, where you need to set up the API keys as well again, and then we'll use llamactl to create the deployment. So you create the deployment using deployment YAML file, and then run the YAML file basically. So llamactl run deployment name and then query the index. This will basically use the workflow.py file and LlamaCloud workflow to query the index, and that returns a query and response. So this is the overall workflow. Let me give a quick demonstration of the entire pipeline. So let's start with the demonstration. We'll first set up the pipeline. We'll give a data source name and then folder ID that I have shown earlier, and then the pipeline name as well, and the service account JSON file. So let me give a quick look at the service account JSON file as well, which has all the necessary details from your Google authentication, right? Okay, so let me create the pipeline here. So before this, you need to export OpenAI key, API key, and then LlamaCloud API key as well. So for this, the pipeline has been set up successfully. So let us look at on the LlamaCloud if the index has been set up. So here is the index, LlamaCloud, Llama Deploy, Google Drive, and then if you click here, yeah. So the data source is indexed, so you can check the data sources here. Yeah, it has Uber 2021 file which is there in the Google Drive, and then you can get the project name, organization ID here, and the name of the pipeline. Okay, so once you have this, you basically need to update the config file. So the index name that you got from here, pipeline name and the index name are same, and then project name which is default, and the organization ID. So once you have this, you basically need to test the workflow. Okay, so let's test the workflow. I have a default question: what is the revenue of Uber in 2021? Okay, so let's test the workflow first. Then yeah, so this will give the answer by the by querying the index. So yeah, so what is the revenue of Uber, and it gave the answer accordingly. So now that this is set up, we need to make the deployment. We have the deployment YAML file here. We gave the all the names, service names, and path names accordingly. So then we need to first create the deployment server. So let's create the deployment server. Yeah, so get this. Yeah, so the server is up now, and then in the at the terminal, let's deploy the deployment YAML file using llamactl. Yeah, so it is deployed. Basically this is the deployment name, you can see here, right? Once this is deployed, you can start querying. So here is it. You can ask what is the revenue of Uber 2021. Okay, So yes, so this gave the result in a dictionary which has query and the response. So this is how you can create set up a pipeline in a workflow and then query the index in another workflow, make it a deployment using Llama Deploy. Do try it out and let us know if you face any issues, create issues on Llama Deploy, and we'll reach out to you, solve them. See you in the next video. Thank you.